Hi there, it's Polly here with Mr. Snoots. Yay! Ooh, and the really good plum wine in a Hello Kitty glass, because why not? So I have some classics to do for you. And one of those was, it's a game called Man, Myth and Magic, which had been very nicely sent to me to a publisher who was republishing some of these old classics. Now, Man, Myth and Magic was an attempt to do a fantasy role-playing game that had a very different setting to the usual medieval one, and this one decided to do a classical setting, and it decided to go for the 1st century AD Roman feel. So this is set in the age of Augustus, Tiberius, Caligula, Nero, the year of the 5 emperors, these sorts of things. So the classic legionaries in Lorica Segmentata, Gladius Hispanica, Wumpf. And it was a very interesting attempt. It never got the traction that it should have, and it's a shame because it had some good bones. I'll go through it with you. It's an interesting attempt, let's say, and I can see kind of why it failed, because the rules are a very good, bold attempt, but they're a little bit what would be the polite term? Diffused in their intent. So the idea is to have a game that is set in 1st century Rome, sword and sandals. If you've watched Spartacus, if you've watched I Claudius, hell, if you watched the recent Rome HBO series, which I adore, that's the setting and that's the thing. And you can see it's got some great hooks. This is the era of Roman civil wars, of fighting Britons, fighting Gauls, fighting Germans, fighting Parthians, fighting with the fighting, civil wars. If you wanted to do an Antony and Cleopatra and so on, you could. But, drinks. They have added magic. Not in a chuck magic about I've got this many spells kind of D&D kind of way, which really does cheapen sort of magic by making it very commonplace. There is magic, it exists, it can be used, it can go wrong, it isn't things that are just flung about ad infinitum, but it does exist. So this would place this in the sword and sandals genre, though edging a bit towards fantasy, because magic is not entirely in the hands of mysterious folk and evildoers. Players and player characters can utilize it. Now the game comes in 2 stages, of basic and advanced, and they had a very interesting idea where they decided essentially they would take you through character generation as a series of adventures, rather than just telling you, here's your characteristics, here's how you roll, voomp, you've got a character. The basic book takes you through how to roll a character and then does a series of adventures which teaches you the game system as you need them. So it gives you a basic set of characteristics. Now, all characteristics are rolled on D100. Percentile dice, straight up, and you just take what they roll. So you can come up with someone who's got 14 intelligence, 93 strength, 6 endurance, but for some reason is very high in wisdom or whatever. So it can be really out there the way they go up and down. You have one characteristic which is skill, which is not rolled. That starts out at a set level. Now you total up all of those rolled characteristics and they become your life force, which is essentially your hit points. As you lose life force through damage and so on, it will drop. When it gets to, I think, 20, you are unconscious, and when it gets to 0, you are dead. But you can kind of be reincarnated. They're rolling up of a new character. They sort of say, oh, that's okay. Look, if you've had a group doing this and someone dies, bring them in as a new character. We just kind of like you're. So they're trying to be a bit light-hearted of the fact that, of course, you can die because they're taking you through character generation as a set of adventures. But their basic thing says, okay, you guys are gladiators, so you're kind of flung into the situation. Here's training, so they do a training exercise. This shows you how combat works. Now here's a little adventure which they put you through, and this will show you how some of the skill system works. And it builds up into quite, a little campaign. And at the end of this book, it's taken you through quite a few adventures and shown you how combat skills, wound recovery, and various bits and pieces work. A nice idea, a bit long-winded perhaps, but a really nice idea to do a walkthrough, and so no one has to sit down and know the game. Even the umpire almost doesn't need to know the game, because this will teach you as you go along. Great. The second book in this volume is the advanced game. Now, the advanced game allows you to choose backgrounds for your character. So you could be from Britain, you could be a German, you could be Gallic, you could be Egyptian, you could be Parthian, you could be, Armenian. It's all in there, and each of these national groupings has a series of different kind of character types that you can take. So they can be rolled, or you can just take. So you could decide, I want to be an ancient Briton, right? You could be an ancient British warrior, you could be an ancient British druid, and so on. I want to come from, I want to be African. Okay, all right, so you're going to be like a Nubian African? Yeah, okay, so you could be a Nubian warrior, you could be a Nubian, witch doctor, and so on. Some of these have not travelled well over the years, I have to say. It's not too glaring, but, there are racial tropes from the time when this game was written, which is, what's that, getting on 4 decades ago. So, gosh, if you know anything in Africa, then gosh, you're a witch doctor. No, these guys had scholars and massive universities. So, yeah, some of that is lurking around, but I have to say, for a relatively early game, if you're taking the rolled assignment, it tells you some of these character choices, like wise women, or so on. They're like that comes, it's gender specific. Even if you're a male player or something, if you roll it, gender specific. Others are chosen. So if you roll a warrior, you can be a female British warrior. You can be a female gladiator. You can be all these things. For some reason, these different character types, I'll call them classes, get a string of different skill bonuses, and of course there are some choices designed to give colour, but they're a bit odd. So it's like, an African warrior gets plus 10% on its combat skill in tropical environments. Really? The heat and the humidity give it a bonus? I personally, I would have said they just get a bonus with the weapons that they've trained on since childhood. What are you guys? Javelin and shield swords? Fantastic. What are you guys? Oh, I'm horse archers. Great. But anyway, so an interesting attempt. In fact, Snooze's friend, the horseshoe crab, approves. Where the thing gets a little bit squirrely. Okay, so the opportunity there with a game that was rolled on with characteristics rolled straight on percentile dice, I guess there was a big opportunity there to do a percentile roll game, because we've got percentiles built in. So roll percentile dice, get your characteristic or less. That is a characteristic test. No, my friends. No, because they tried to do quite an interesting thing in combat. So you're given a skill rating as a starting character, which in the starting basic game is a 20, because you're starting real low. I think in the more advanced game, they say you're a bit more experienced, you'll be starting at 50, but 20. So what they're saying is you have a 20% chance of hitting, but counting from 100 backwards. So if I've got a 20 skill, I have to roll an 80 or higher on percentile dice to succeed. Okay, and if I've got 40 skill, then I count down from 100 40 back. So a 60 or higher would succeed. Okay. But every point on the dice above the minimum you need to hit is a point of damage on the target. So if I have an 80% chance of hitting and I roll an 87, right, I've done 7 points of damage on the target. If I rolled a 92, I've done 12 points of damage on the target. If you have a weapon of some sort, that will add a set number to that damage. So if I have a dagger or something, it'll add 10 to the damage. So even if I get so much as 1 point, like if I have an 80 or higher to hit and I roll an 81, that would normally be 1 point of damage. I've got a dagger, it becomes 11 points. All right, fair enough. And a sword will add, 20 or so. It's not that huge, but 10 or 20, maybe 30 points, depending on 25, I think, for a two-handed axe, that sort of thing. So that is the basic combat system. This comes off your life force, etc. Now, if you have armor, the armor subtracts from the damage that you take. So again, you can see a fairly simple system in the basic rules. Where it gets squirrely is the skill tests, because they've ended up with a chart. Some of these things are done the same way as combat runs. So if I have a rating in a characteristic, I have to count sort of backwards from 100 to do that. So if I have 36 in, I don't know, agility, and I'm doing an agility test, well, I count back from 100, so 74 or higher will succeed. But other things, you actually are rolling the skill percentage or less. Other things seem to just have other strange effects. So once you get into the advanced game, there are a lot of extra characteristics which they optionally add in. Double the number of characteristics. So instead of just dexterity, they'll have like coordination, they'll have manual dexterity, and so on. They bring in things like determination, which is how often you can go back and try and repeat attempting a task, and all these sorts of things. Oh, all right, fair enough. But what they tend to do is, for each individual sort of thing, for every 10 points in it, it will do something for you. So it's like power, which is your strength, your physical strength. All right, well, they say something like for every 10 full points over 50, you'll add 1 point to the damage that you inflict with a weapon. All right, so if I had rolled a fantastic 100 on the percentile dice for my strength, yay, I would add +5 to my damage. I guess it's better than not having a +5 to your damage. However, it's not going to completely win a fight, but okay. And likewise, dexterity and coordination, so can, for every, if you've got over 74 points, then every 10 points can subtract 1 off the other guy's chance of hitting you, and those sorts of things. So there is an array of really quite minor bonus and modifications to the dice, and since it's on a percentile system, it's like it's there, but it doesn't have a lot of bite into the system, is my feeling. If I'm only getting 1 point for every 10 full points over 50 that I've rolled in a percent of the thing, so the most I can do is get a 5% bonus in something. It's like, yeah, okay, so it's not an earth mover. Your characteristics aren't really an earth mover. Positive aspect on that, let us say that I've rolled a 0-1 for strength character or whatever. It's not that much of a problem. So the characteristics give you a minor bonus, but they don't really hamper you. So okay. And obviously the advanced game brings you in a wealth of extra options on armor and so forth. You can do specific hits going for specific areas of the body and these sorts of things. And there is like a critical hit system. If you hit someone and take them down, they might lose bits of themselves. You can lose limbs. You can do things like that. Mm-hmm. Now there are magic using classes, things like those druids, those witch doctors, desert mystics and strange high priests and so on, which you can take. There's a list of magic. It's some useful stuff, but it takes time to do. Its effects, it's not, yeah, fireball, fireball, heal, heal, but you know, you can have someone that's a magical healer that will help you recover more lost hit points, and there won't be infection or something because this healer is. There's a guy there who can, you know, work curses or work direct things to hamper enemies and give them negatives on their rolls and so on. So magic is incredibly useful, and at its higher levels can sort of curse areas and cause real problems. And you can see like an evil sorcerer can be a huge kind of hindrance and an interesting enemy. Having a powerful player character sorcerer could help bolster a party and do great things. But it costs you power to cast spells. Now, this is the other thing. This is a game where you are questing for power. As you complete scenarios, as you overcome enemies, and as you do butch stuff, because this is Rome and we've all got rippling muscles and we all speak with... we're actually speaking in Italian, but our English is lip-synced. This does actually give a... by the way, at the start of it, it does talk about peplum films and so on, and the Great Sword and Sandal epics. But yes, you gain power. You also gain power for gaining money. Each sort of, I think each denarii that you gain gives you a point of power. Power gained through money, by the way, you only keep it while you have the money. So if you get 1,000 gold pieces, say, and then you go off and you blow it all at the races, or you buy yourself an amazing hat, you had 1,000 power points, but since you spent the money, that's gone. So use power gained by money while you have the money, I guess. But at least in this thing, like, there's a weird hollowness to the questing for treasure in original Dungeons and Dragons. I have never quite figured out why the designers didn't figure out that the game is a lesson, in many ways a lesson in the emptiness of attachment and all that cool Zen and Tower stuff, because it's like, yay, once you get a certain amount of treasure, it's almost meaningless to you unless you're counting it as experience points. The money itself doesn't really do anything for you. In this, yes, it is a usable power resource which can be used practically for things. Power is used for casting spells. Power can also be used to do things like you can burn it to reroll dice or to give yourselves bonuses on dice and all sorts of things. You can also burn, once you get to a magical 200 power level, you can declare that you are reincarnating your character, that you are transforming it into a new character class. You have to re-roll your skill from scratch, but I think everything else stays the same. But you can say, my humble warrior has just become a mighty magic user. You can just do this. It is your transformation, you spend the power, and off you go. You can do it. But that can be also expressed as an actual reincarnation and can be done at any time during play. So if your character suddenly takes an arrow to the neck and dies, if he's got a ton of power, the player can actually suddenly yell out and declare, I'm reincarnating! Yes, I have died, but this is my moment of transformation. Yes, once I was Gandalf the Grey, now I'm Gandalf the White. Ooh, I am white. So it is a get out of jail free card if you want to use it as such. So you might want to keep 200 aside should you earn it. It's actually quite hard to earn this stuff because like a gold piece is pretty hard to come by. But yes, it does get you reincarnation ability as well as other things. I think you can only use the reincarnation once in a game. So, look, there are rules for increasing your skill. There is a failure point. Everyone has a set failure point on their skill rolls. Power, each point of power you've got lowers your failure automatic failure chance on your skill rolls, so so power also makes you become directly more amazing at skills and fighty, and you do have a little tactical thing of, do I spend the money or hold on to it because I might need this power for this or that. No, I'm not buying the important thing I need because at the moment my power is all dependent on money. I've got to go and defeat some more enemies because I really want 200 power points, but I want that from my mighty deeds rather than my mighty wealth, because my mighty wealth could be stolen from me and then I can't reincarnate. But so there's some interesting things there. The game comes with a number of adventures in it, some of which are quite funny, like you actually have to well, funny, but you have to, like, one of them, you've come into this strange African zone, and you're told there's a dragon that you've got to find and fight. A dragon's been terrorizing an area. Yeah, basically, a lost valley has been opened and there's been a Tyrannosaurus in it. So armed with a pilum, Lorica segmentata, a scudum and a short sword. Yes, and I must, because it's been a perfectly straight-laced universe up to then. So yeah, I'll go find your dragon for you, shall I? What is it? Someone stealing your cattle? That's like, no, it's a big kind of lizard thing with tiny little hands and great big teeth, and it's about 20 foot tall. Oh, bugger. So, yes, they do have some fun with it. Now, I have to say, I did play this back in the day, and we didn't go far with it, and it might have been unfairly so, because someone had a pre-prepared adventure that we're a group of avid Ancients players, which is why we wanted to play this, because hey, this is kind of our song. But the pre-prepared adventure, the history in it was really bad. I mean really bad. Centurion's got a job for you. Where is he? Says, this is Ireland and everything. You've been you're in Ireland. Says, hi, what? Well, as far as I know, the Roman legions absolutely did smegging not get to Ireland. There's a slight chance one auxiliary unit might have been sent over there to ally with the local king, but sure, go on. Where's the Centurion? Oh, he's over in the potato barn. Says, time, hold the phone. The potato barn, is he smoking a pipe? Is he riding a tricycle? I don't know. But that might have just been an unofficial publication, because the publications, the adventures I'm seeing actually in these rules are good. They're very good, and they have done their research to the extent that things were known. When was this thing done? In the 80s, when this thing was done. We now know a lot more about Roman things, but this still holds up pretty well. I mean, Rome is something that's been studied fairly well. We know a lot more now, but these guys that have done this, like those initial scenarios, taking you through the whole gladiatorial thing, they're using correct terms, and yeah. Now, there are some interesting opportunities in this game. Like, I think there's I've seen some adventures come out recently that have been set in ancient Rome that have worked well. But there's some interesting things you could do. For instance, what if you were playing a game and Caligula is emperor, and you catch his eye? Maybe your gladiators, or maybe because Caligula was incredibly popular with the troops. That's why he's called Caligula. He was a little kid that was on campaign with everyone in Germany because his father, Germanicus, was a general, and the legions just adored Germanicus' son. They just adopted him. Caligula, he's their little boots, because he actually wore little tiny military boots as a toddler. They actually, they made them for him. They had them collared with hobnails and everything. So as emperor, he came back, and the army just adored him. It was like having the circus in town. He came back. Everyone remembered him. You've grown up. You made it to emperor. Hey, kid, fantastic. So there's opportunities to have that. Well, I don't know why they're complaining about him in Rome, because he's turned up here and it's just been like old time. He's turned up, he's remembered old people that he used to know as a kid, he's rewarded them, he's put on a real circus for everybody. This guy's a riot. And he's got some special jobs for you. It's like, guys, I want to declare war on Neptune. What? Yeah, I want to declare war on the sea god. What? Yeah, dark evil stuff is happening. And there's some kind of cult of the sea god that's doing it, and I need you guys to investigate it. Wait, Caligula actually did that. Yes, he did. Maybe he wasn't a lunatic. Maybe there was actually something going on. I know, and you guys can be a part of it. So yeah, you know, there's some real interesting opportunities for doing kind of Call of Cthulhu-esque style adventures with terrible cults, magicians, but you could also do political kind of things. You could do something like the HBO Rome series, where you've got honest to God kind of, you know, military combat going on, but also political skullduggery and characters getting drawn into it. You can do out and out exploring. You can do wandering into strange and weird lands. It is a game that has a lot of possibilities. So as I said, look, I think the only thing that sort of lets it down a little is the fact that you have this chart that says which skills you have to roll high on and which you have to roll low on. I'm not quite sure why they did this. I can see the logic of it. They wanted that combat system where you roll high because everything you get over the minimum is the damage. So they're trying to keep as much of it as possible in that kind of line. But there's some things where like, oh, dexterity, this guy's trying to walk over a narrow plank over this seething pit of scorpions. Does he make it or not? Oh, just roll percent on dice and get his agility or less. Fairly intuitive. So, you know, so they've had to make some exceptions where anything kind of touched in any way upon their combat system. So, look, this is an interesting idea. I haven't seen anyone else really do that system where the better your combat roll is, the more damage you do. And therefore, most games relied on a system where you rolled a hit and you roll damage, and those are completely separate things. So in this, anything that increases your accuracy also increases the damage you do. So if you're aiming at someone carefully with a bow or something, it'll give you a plus 10 or plus 20 to hit, but that also can obviously radically affect the damage you do. So, that's a really nice, clear idea. So there's some ideas in this that are gold. And also, the higher your skill gets, the more damage you can do, because a more skilled character has a 50 skill, which means counting back from from 00, they are going to hit on a 50 or higher on percentile dice, which means just on a raw roll, they could potentially get 50 damage to someone, whereas someone that's got an 80 skill potentially has only got 20 damage they can do to someone. And as a pretty highly skilled swordswoman and so on myself, I absolutely assure you the amount of damage you do to someone is entirely dependent on your skill. So this is an interesting idea. If you're a game designer, have a think about this. Write me an essay at home. No, don't do that. But have a think, particularly for a samurai kind of thing where skill is all. This is an idea that needs to be thought about and preserved. Unshackle yourself from the 2-hit and the damage roll that most games have kind of slavishly done for 40 years, and roll it all into one system. I think that's interesting. If I was going to redo Bushido, which I would love to do, this is the kind of thing I would be looking at. So it's a game that deserved a lot more traction than it had, and you can do some really interesting adventures for it. It's actually a really nice, relatively easy to understand system. I do like the fact that poor characteristics aren't going to screw you up much. And high characteristics are going to give you something of a bonus, but they're not going to dominate the game. Again, like classic old school games, it's what you say your character is doing is more important than the dice rolls themselves. So, well done. The combat system is quite detailed, because if they want to do things like amazing wacky combats, in an arena where, someone brings on the chariots or brings on the elephants, or hey, Caligula chucks you a dagger and then says, defend yourself from these 3 tigers. It's all in there, so you can do it. So, it is flexible and it's simple. It is actually really simple to teach. Really, it's just there's that little thing of, for the combat skills, your skill level is what you subtract from 100 and you've got to roll that or higher. If I have 25 skill, I'm going to be rolling a 75 or higher. But you're writing that down on your character sheet, so it's not like you're being asked to do maths every time you, leap into combat. So I honestly think this is a good game. I honestly think it had some great ideas, and those ideas should be reopened and re-examined, because there's some really good bones in there. It has been republished, links below of course, and this publisher is bringing out a plethora of older kind of fringe games that needed some love. So yeah, take a look at the catalogue and give them some love, because I think this is a worthy enterprise to bring games like this back. I would certainly actually run this game. In fact, if I had some Ancients Miniatures gamers, I'd offer them this rather than Dungeons and Dragons, which has a bit of a stank on it because of its pop cred at the moment. Like, oh yeah, it's for all the hip teens with the belly piercings. No. Hey, did you like HBO's Rome and everything? Yeah, let's play that. That would be my in for subverting people from the miniatures community and bringing them to role-playing. Which is, an evil plan, which we shall conspire upon. So anyway, a great game, well worth checking out. It'll only cost you a couple of bucks on the publisher's site. There were a bunch of adventures for this done back in the day, and they are there. And like I said, fairly easy thing to cook up adventures for, because that whole Roman sword and sandals kind of thing has been a source of so many movies and so on over the years, that it's an easy thing to come up with quite cool plots for. And remember, we often forget you don't need a massively complex plot to involve players. 1001 plots, subplots, and double, triple, quintuple backstabbings, almost not necessary. An enemy, a hidden thing going on that the players don't initially know about, and some problems to face them is actually going to drive a campaign and is actually going to be realistic, rather than 1,000 years of potted history and 51 subplots. So yes, take a look at some old Sword and Sandals films. Watch HBO Rome. Watch things like Spartacus. Watch Ben-Hur. Watch the remake of Ben-Hur that was done recently, and so on. And then I think you'd be overflowing with ideas for this kind of setting. So anyway, hope you take a look at it. It's worth it. Mr. Snoots actually rather enjoyed it. Yay! I said, Krabby. Yay! So, I will hopefully see you guys around the game table someday. Look after yourselves. Much love to everyone. And Hello Kitty. Bye. Cheers, everyone.